Annex Greenland? Puerto Rico would like a word first, Mr. President. This one's by Andrew Serwer from Barron's. In light of President-elect at the time, Donald Trump's stated ambition to somehow take control of Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal, who knows how serious he is, it might take sense to look at the territories we already possess, the areas beyond the 50 states and Washington, D.C. The United States has 5 primary designated territories: America Samoa, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, composed of St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix. Some 3.6 million people live on these islands, with a great majority, about 3.3 million, in Puerto Rico. Samoa and the Marianas have about 50,000 each. The U.S. has unincorporated territories which are largely uninhabited in the Pacific and the Atlantic, including some of World War II fame such as Wake Island and Midway Islands. Also on the list are Howland Island, Two Baker Island, Jarvis Island, Johnson Atoll, Kingman Reef, Navassa Island, Serenilla Bank, and Baja Nuevo Bank. The latter two are administered by Colombia but have been claimed by Honduras, Jamaica, and Nicaragua, as well as the U.S. While 4 of the 5 big territories are overseen by the Office of Insular Affairs, part of the Department of Interior, Puerto Rico is more complicated. It is represented by the Resident Commission of Puerto Rico in Congress and Puerto Rico Federal Affairs Administration. When it comes to relationships between each of the 5 and the U.S., there are significant gray areas and variations in terms of issues such as government insight, citizenship, voting, military service, congressional representation, and taxation. Weighing up how these territories are faring economically isn't easy, partly because data collection and government statistics are scant, according to a May report from the Government Accountability Office. Still, it is safe to say that these economies are a mixed bag. Starting in the Pacific, Samoa seems to have bounced back fairly well from COVID-19 and a measles outbreak, with tourism providing some pop. Its economy grew 8% in 2023, according to the Department of State, while the Asian Development Bank estimates that growth was 11% last year, 2023, in this case. The second best among the Pacific Island nations, but Guam, which relies on military spending and tourism, is treading water, according to a recent local news report. The Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands also has relied on tourists, but 40% of them had come from China. With strained relations between Beijing and Washington, the territory is now caught in the middle. Sometimes I feel like John the Baptist out in the desert, Arnold Palacios, the governor of Marianas, said recently, according to South China Morning Post. Over in the Atlantic, employment in the U.S. Virgin Islands, a favorite destination for American tourists, have fallen to 36,000 from 41,000 over the past 2 decades, according to a Federal Reserve Bank of New York report. The U.S. Virgin Islands have been under fiscal stress, and while it has not defaulted on debt payments, public debt is high and market access for borrowing is limited, the New York Fed said. Far from being the biggest of the quintet is, of course, Puerto Rico, which came under control of the U.S. in 1898 following the Spanish-American War. It has been troubled for decades. With 45% of its population living below the poverty line and average household income of $22,237, Puerto Rico is poorer than Mississippi, the least wealthy state, with an average household income of $54,203. To be fair, Puerto Rico has a lower cost of living than the U.S. and the highest gross domestic product per capita in Latin America. According to a Comprehensive Council of Foreign Relations report last year, Puerto Rico, a U.S. territory in crisis, the territory suffers from the accumulation of massive debt and the ill effects of natural disasters, the COVID-19 panic, government mismanagement, and population decline. A recession that dragged on from 2006 to 2017 hurt all manner of business and industry. Much of Puerto Rico's flickering electric grid, for instance, blacked out this past New Year's Eve. While territorial status was a path to statehood for Alaska and Hawaii, they both made the leap in 1959, that wouldn't seem to be happening for Puerto Rico, in part because its economy is so troubled. The U.S. shares the blame for that. The CFR report cites Puerto Rico's close yet fraught relationship with the U.S. as a significant factor behind its problems. None of this is to suggest that if the U.S. somehow took control of Canada or Greenland, the economies would crater. One could make the case that before Trump grasps for new territories, the U.S. might choose to address shortcomings in those already in our orbit. Thank you, Andy Serwer, for putting this in words that I probably could not as effectively as I probably could not have. So yes, this is it. Puerto Rico and D.C. deserve statehood, period, end of story. That's where I'm at. See you soon.